I woke up at 2:17 a.m. to the sound of breathing slow, deep, and far too close to be my own. I didn't move at first. I just lay there, my eyes wide in the dark. Listening, I had been on the road for 9 hours that day, driving through a stretch of state I barely knew. When I pulled into the first motel, I saw an aging, 2-story building with flickering neon and a parking lot. Half swallowed by weeds, I was too tired to care about how run down it looked. The clerk barely glanced at me as he slid the key across the counter, his voice low when he told me I was lucky to get the last room. The air in the room was stale when I walked in, heavy with the faint smell of mildew. The carpet was worn. Thin, the curtains were stiff with dust, and the hum of the old window AC filled the silence. But I told myself I'd only be there for the night. I set my bag on the chair, kicked off my shoes, and collapsed onto the bed. It wasn't until I turned off the light that I noticed it a faint, sour odor lingering beneath the smell of mildew. At first I thought maybe it was the AC filter, or something in the plumbing, but it was stronger when I lay my head down, almost like it was coming from directly beneath me. I tried to ignore it, but the smell only seemed to thicken the longer I lay there. Rot, dampness, something organic. Eventually, curiosity and a faint unease pushed me to check. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and leaned over the side of the bed. The beam lit up the shadowed carpet beneath, and then 2 eyes, wide, glassy, and reflecting the light in perfect stillness. I jerked back so fast my phone slipped from my hand and clattered to the floor. My first thought was that it had to be a doll or some weird trick of the light. But then the breathing I'd been ignoring, the slow, heavy rhythm, rose up from the floor directly beneath me. I didn't say anything, didn't scream. My body just froze. My phone was still on the carpet, its light now spilling toward the closet, leaving the space under the bed in darkness again. I didn't dare lean over a second time. I sat there, heart hammering so hard I thought it might give me away. My mind was spinning. What was I supposed to do? If I ran for the door, I'd have to step past whatever was under there. If I called for help, would they even hear me in a place like this? The breathing stopped. That silence was worse. It was heavy, like the air before a storm. I slid my feet up onto the bed, pulling my knees to my chest, keeping my eyes fixed on the space between the bed and the door. After what felt like minutes, maybe hours, I heard it. A slow, deliberate scrape, like fabric brushing the carpet. Something was shifting under there, moving closer to the edge. I reached, slowly, for my phone, my hand trembling as my fingers found it. I didn't dare turn the light toward the floor. Instead, I unlocked it and opened the camera, angling it downward while keeping my eyes on the screen. For a split second, I saw them again, those same, wide, unblinking eyes, but now, a pale shape was visible around them. Skin, a face, pressed low to the ground, grinning without showing teeth. I nearly dropped the phone again. I stood up on the bed, my voice coming out in a shaking shout. I know you're under there. No answer, no movement. I jumped from the bed to the far side, landing near the door, and yanked it open. The hallway was empty. I bolted, barefoot, down to the front desk. The clerk was still there, head down, scrolling through something on his phone. When I told him someone was in my room, he didn't look surprised, just annoyed. He picked up the phone and called for maintenance in a flat tone. No 911, no urgency. I didn't go back upstairs. I waited outside in my car with the doors locked, engine running. until a man in a faded uniform came out and told me there was nothing there. He claimed the smell was just mildew from the carpet, and the eyes I saw were probably a shadow. I left without checking out, driving until the sun rose. But here's the part I can't shake. A few days later, while scrolling through local news, I saw a short article about a missing person found dead behind that same motel stuffed into an unused crawl space beneath one of the rooms. The picture they used of the victim, he had the same pale face and the same wide, glassy eyes. I woke to the sound of my bedroom doorknob turning slowly, carefully, like someone was trying not to be heard. The worst part, I live alone. It was a Wednesday night, just after 11 p.m, and I was winding down with a book. My house is a small one. Story, 2 bedrooms, so I can hear almost everything that happens inside it. That's part of why I've always felt safe here. Every sound has a source I can identify. But that night, something felt different. I'd just set my book on the nightstand when I heard the faintest metallic click, like the sound a doorknob makes when someone tests it. I froze mid-reach for the lamp switch. My bedroom door was shut. I always keep it shut, but that noise had come from the other side. I stayed still, straining to hear. Then it happened again. This time, the knob didn't just click, it began to turn. Slowly, deliberately. The air in the room seemed to get heavier, pressing against my chest. I whispered to myself that maybe the latch was loose, or maybe the air pressure from the AC was making it shift. But deep down, I knew neither of those things could make a doorknob turn like that. I didn't move. I just watched. The turning stopped. There was a pause of silence so thick that I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. Then, inch by inch, the door began to open. I could see the hallway through the growing gap. At first, just a sliver of darkness, then more. My eyes darted to the shadows, waiting for a shape, a movement, anything. But nothing stepped into view. When the door was halfway open, I snapped on my lamp. The sudden light spilled into the hallway, empty, completely empty. I got up, my legs trembling, and walked to the doorway. My hallway is short, 5 steps from end to end, and I could see straight into the kitchen. Everything was still. The front door was locked. The windows were shut. I told myself it had to be something mechanical. A problem with the latch. That's what I clung to as I shut the door again, this time twisting the lock. I got back in bed, turned off the light, and tried to convince myself I could sleep. But the quiet didn't last. A few minutes later, I heard it again, the knob. Turning that this time, my heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The locked door gave a faint rattle, as if someone on the other side was testing it, not aggressively, just patiently. I grabbed my phone and opened the security camera app. I have a small camera mounted in the hallway, facing directly toward my bedroom door. My hands shook as I tapped the live feed. The hallway was empty, and yet, as I watched the feed, I saw it happen. My bedroom door began to open, slowly, smoothly, but there was no one in the hallway. The camera doesn't have night vision, just the dim glow from the kitchen light at the far end. But even in the grainy shadows, I could tell there was nothing there. No shapes, no movement, just the door opening by itself. I sat frozen, watching the gap widen on the screen, then glanced up at the real door across the room, perfectly matching what I saw on my phone. That was when I noticed something else. In the camera feed, just for a second, I thought I saw a shift. Not movement exactly, more like the darkness itself seemed to ripple just outside the door frame. And then my phone screen went black. The feed cut out completely. That was enough. I jumped out of bed, grabbed my keys, and ran out the front door in my pajamas. I didn't stop to look around, didn't even grab shoes. I got in my car, locked the doors, and drove to a nearby 24-hour gas station. I stayed there until sunrise, when I finally worked up the nerve to go home. I checked the camera history. The footage from 11 p.m. to 11:17 p.m. was gone. Just skipped, like it had never recorded at all. I tested the bedroom door later, twisting and pulling at the latch to see if I could get it to open on its own. It wouldn't budge without force. I haven't slept with the door closed since. And sometimes, usually around the same time, at night, hear it again, the faint click of the doorknob turning, followed by the sound of hinges creaking. Even though I'm watching the doorway, and nothing is there. He smiled when he said my name slowly, like he'd been waiting a long time to use it. The problem was, I had no idea who he was. I go jogging almost every evening in the same park, just before sunset. It's a small loop around a pond, with a few benches and lampposts. And by now, I recognize most of the regulars. The woman who walks her poodle, the older man with headphones, the teenage skateboarders who cut across the trail. That evening felt like any other. The air was cool, the sky fading from orange to blue. I was halfway through my second lap when I noticed a man standing by one of the lampposts ahead. He wasn't dressed like a jogger, dark jeans, black jacket, and he didn't look like he was waiting for anyone, just watching Dot. As I got closer, he stepped forward into the path. I slowed, assuming he needed directions or something. That's when he said it. "Hi, my name." It stopped me cold. I've never seen him before in my life, and he didn't sound like he was guessing. He said it with total certainty. I managed to ask, "Do I know you?" He tilted his head, almost amused. "Of course you do. We've met before." I started scanning my memory, but nothing about his face or voice felt familiar. He was tall, pale, with short dark hair, and his smile didn't quite reach. His eyes, when I asked, he chuckled quietly. "Oh, a long time ago. You probably don't remember." I was already uncomfortable, but before I could excuse myself, he added something that made my skin crawl. "How's your bedroom? Still has that window that faces the big oak tree in your yard?" I froze. I'd never told anyone in the park where I live. My house is tucked on a quiet street. The big oak tree right outside my bedroom window, something you'd only know if you'd stood in my yard or looked inside. My voice came out sharper than I intended. "How do you know that?" His smile widened just slightly. "I notice things." I stepped back, my heart pounding now. "I think you have me confused with someone else," I said, forcing myself to sound firm. But he didn't move. He just kept talking. "You don't have to pretend. I remember the photo on your dresser, the one of you and your mum. You've had it there for years, haven't you?" That hit me harder than the first detail. That photo isn't visible from outside my house, even if you were looking through the window. The only way to see it is to be inside my room. I felt a cold wave of adrenaline hit. I turned and started walking quickly down the path, glancing over my shoulder. He didn't follow me, at least, not at first. But when I glanced back again, he was gone. I broke into a run and didn't stop until I reached my car. My hands were shaking as I unlocked it and got in, locking the doors immediately. The park was quiet, no sign of him anywhere. When I got home, I went through every room, checking the locks on the doors and windows. Everything was secure. Still, I barely slept that night. Every creak in the house made me sit up, listening. The next morning, I checked my front porch camera, hoping maybe it had caught something in the past few days. That's when I saw it footage from 2 nights before. Around 2:30 a.m., the quality isn't great, but I could see a figure standing at the very edge of my yard, just past the motion sensor's range. He stood there for over 2 minutes, not moving, just facing the house. And even though the resolution was grainy, I could tell from the way he held himself. The slight tilt of the head, it was him. I sent the footage to the police, but without a clear face or any proof he'd broken in, there wasn't much they could do. They told me to be cautious and avoid the park for a while. I haven't been back since. I've added more cameras, extra locks, even motion lights. But here's the thing: last night, right before bed, I got a text from an unknown number. No words, just a picture. It was my bedroom window, taken from outside, and in the reflection of the glass, I could see him smiling.